In addition to the popularity of grown-up coloring, a lot of people are into mixed media, and really that's just mixing your mediums. A lot of people ask us, what sort of things can I use my Chameleon pens with? Well, we're going to give you some hints and tips over the next couple of months. Today I'm covering Chameleon pens working with colored pencils. Now, you may have a stock of colored pencils at home already, and we wanted to show you how you can integrate this to get some even more interesting effects using Chameleon pens. Now, one of the big things is the difference in the mediums that you're mixing. And one thing you can see just right off is an alcohol ink pen. The colors are pretty intense and the inks actually saturate right into the paper. So when you take a look at that versus the medium of a colored pencil really more sits on the surface. And it's not quite as solid coverage. But what's kind of cool is you can take these two properties in the mediums and mix them together to get some even more interesting effects. So first of all, what I like to show is how you can be able to use colored pencils with chameleons to be able to get texture. One very important thing though, I really have to make sure I note with you is make sure you're actually using the colored pencils over the Chameleon pens. Do not use the Chameleon pens over the colored pencils. Why? Because what'll happen is this is very waxy, and a lot of the times the wax can get into and clog the tip. So always put your Chameleon color down first and then put your colored pencil on top. Never the other way around. But we're going to show you how to do that. So first of all, let's just do some texture, which is kind of cool. Here I've already laid down some color. I've added a bit of shadows in here using my Chameleon. I actually used fawn, the fawn color on here. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go in and have a little bit of fun using my pencils over top, creating some texture on top of those little rocks. So this is something that we're just sort of layering over top, doing a bit of a cross hatch effect. And I can go in, maybe add a second color. You can add maybe some even more interesting textures in here. So by laying down a base first, and you could be laying down the Chameleon as a flat color, or like I've done a few little highlights and deeper depths in and around this little rock, but sort of play with it. You can kind of get some interesting effects and getting the sort of marbleized texture effect that I'm doing here. So that's one way that you can play around with it, layering the colored pencils over top of your alcohol inks. The other one is just maybe adding some solid coverage. And here, because you might want a much lighter finish on top, what I've done is I've done some little sort of striations, almost a Monet effect. And I'm using a colored pencil just to kind of go over top, and it's adding a different texture to the picture, but it's sort of giving it a bit lighter effect. I don't want to cover over top of that pretty sky striations that I've done there. So what I'm doing is I'm going over top of this light blue. So that's another great way you can get an interesting effect. You can add a lot of depth and dimension by going over top of your existing alcohol inks and creating these layers to get some really, really intense effects. So again, first what I did was I layered down, I fused some of the pens, and I got different striations of color from my light yellow to my darker yellow, pinks and oranges, to try and give that kind of effect on the sky, intense sort of sunset effect behind there. And I'll finish that up. I'll add more inks in there, and then I'll layer back over top. Another way you can do this is you can use a light color like a white, and maybe you want to add a highlight. So you can, because it can layer on top, you can actually put lighter colors over top of your darker colors. So maybe you want to add a highlight after the fact on top of things. So a white pencil can work great. It's a little different than like an opaque paint. It gives you a slightly different effect. You can also use it to add even darker colors. So maybe I wanted to get in here and get some more intense effects. I can do that also using a darker color green, but this could be just a different, again, texture that you're adding along with the, to give an overall effect of the picture. So there you have it. Always make sure that you put your Chameleon color ink down first, and then you're going to layer your colored pencil on top. You can use it to add different textures. You can use it for an overall blanket coverage. You can use lighter colors over top of dark to maybe add some highlights, and you can use darker colors over top of light to add a little bit more depth and dimension if you want to. And that's how you can mix your mediums using Chameleon color tone pens and colored pencils.